All right. Well, let's call to order the Patton Township Planning Commission for May 2nd. And the first item of business is, do we have anybody? We don't have anybody live in the audience, and it doesn't look like we have anybody on Zoom to ask if anything would like to be ordered or added to the agenda. So, moving forward, item number 2, do we have a motion to approve our minutes from the last meeting?
I'll motion.
Sharon, motion. Do we have a second?
Yes,
I'll
I'll second.
second. Yep.
Thank you.
Need a vote.
Oh, what's that?
Need to vote.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays? Very good, so moved. We'll stick with the agenda. Item 3, any public comments? Moving forward, item number 4, Ferguson Township official map update. Nicole, do you want to tee us up with that?
Yep.
Thank you.
So you guys actually looked at a version of this official map update from Ferguson Township back at the March regular meeting. They have since gone back and added another minor update to the Musser Trail to be designated as a proposed bicycle facility. So it's a pretty minor change from what you saw before, and it's kind of on a different end of Ferguson Township than the border with Patton Township. And back in March, I believe you did not forward any comments to Ferguson Township, but they wanted to make sure that we had another opportunity to look at it again. So if you guys have any comments that you would like forwarded to Ferguson Township, you can let us know. If not, we can move on.
I guess my only question is, where is the Musser Gap Trail?
Alex, can you let me share screen, please, so I can pull up the map for them?
It's
Yes.
out by Shingletown.
By Shingletown.
Yeah, it goes, you know, if you know where, yeah.
I know where you're at.
Shingletown.
There's the base of the mountain there, probably.
Yeah, kind of to the east or to the west of Shingletown a ways.
I do believe, and Doug, you can correct me if I'm mistaken, but it is down over in here, I think.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, that's
It
all.
goes up to Rothrock.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
New regional park.
Aha.
Yes, thank you, Jim.
Yeah, and then it connects to the new Whitehall Road Regional Park also.
Yeah. Anything else on the map? Was that the only addition?
Yes, from the last time it was looked at in March, that's the only thing they're proposing to change.
So Planning Commission, do we have any comments that we would like to forward to Ferguson Township? Or to the board? So if there are no comments, there's nothing to vote on, correct? So we'll move on to item number 5, and that is a report on pending items. So I guess, Nicole, you're going to tee us up again, if you would, please.
Sure. So the last few plans that were reviewed by the Planning Commission did go to the board at their March 23rd meeting. So there was a subdivision plan and the Mount Nittany Health Outpatient Center that ran concurrently, and those both were conditionally approved. And also the Chick-fil-A land development plan was also conditionally approved at that meeting. And then, as you know, we are still pending on our sign ordinance update, and those are the pending items.
Very good. Okay. Moving forward, item number 6, our Patton Township Housing Task Force, the core group.
Yep, so there's a group from the 2021 Patton Township Housing Task Force that are continuing on this year for quarterly meetings. The group had its first meeting in March. Most of the discussion that took place at that meeting surrounded the two main objectives of the group. Number one is to assist you, the Planning Commission, in researching affordable housing, especially the recommendations put forth by the 2021 Patton Township Housing Task Force report that they wrote, and also working on community outreach and awareness. The group has since been talking about how to research some comparable university towns and how they might be addressing some affordable housing challenges. And the group has also begun to brainstorm new ideas for some CNET videos, again, to help with that community outreach and awareness. And as always, we would like to remind everybody that the 3 videos that were produced and aired beginning in the fall of 2021 are still out there in circulation and are available on the township website, specifically the Housing Task Force page, and there is a link to that in the agenda this evening. The second report, just want to keep you all up to date that Center County is working on a solutions-based affordable housing study, and I am working with staff from the county in that capacity. There was a week in March where they held 8 stakeholder listening sessions, and I do believe they heard a lot from the center region, which is great for Patton Township and the greater State College area, but they are now working a little bit outside of the region to try to get some more of the rural part of the county to participate and try to get the business community to weigh in on this as well. So I will continue to be part of that effort and to work with the county and their consultant. The project is anticipated to wrap up by the end of 2022, and I will be sure to keep you all in the loop.
Very good. Are we ready to move on to item B?
That was item B, sorry, I jumped in.
Yeah, okay. One of the things I noticed is that, so the Planning Commission had a special request, and that is for the staff to reach out to neighboring municipalities. And I just want to take a moment and pause on this. And here in our notes, it reads that Patton Township staff reached out to College, Ferguson, and Harris Townships to understand how the regulations are working with, and this is in reference to obviously ADUs and if there have been any issues. And according to this, it's stating that the municipalities have not had any issues. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Anything else? Did we find anything else about, and we also noticed that there were some differences in how College, Ferguson, and Harris Township, there were differences between the 3 of them. And are we going to get into that conversation this evening?
Yep, when we get into our work session,
Yeah.
the 5 main items that we're going to talk about, I break down how the 3 address those specific topics.
Very good, very good. Okay. So then let's move on to item number 7, other business.
So as you all are aware, the Center Regional Planning Agency is putting together some training for all of you, for all of the 6 Center Region Municipal Planning Commissions. This is a good refresher for those of you that have been around for a little while, but also really good for those of you that are new or newer to being a Planning Commission member. So the first session is going to be kind of just a broad overview of planning and the role and responsibilities of the Planning Commission. And that will be held on May 16th at 7 p.m. at Harris Township. But there is a Zoom option, so we are asking everybody to RSVP whether or not you are going to attend in person or via Zoom, so we can make sure that we have an accurate head count for the room. And you should have all received an email from Marcella Hoffman. She is the CRPA administrator. And there will be a reminder email sent out if you can't find that email and you would like to RSVP, that we will send a reminder out there shortly. And there's a flyer attached with the agenda materials tonight that gives a list of the 5 meetings that we will be holding and their tentative dates and the topics that they will cover. And as always, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me.
Very good. Okay. That's a fast agenda, but we don't have anything further. I'll make a motion. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
A motion.
Sharon, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Thank you. And now, CNET will stay present for our work session?
Yeah, they're gonna stay here.
Okay. This is where we get into a little more meat. Who's gonna lead us on this?
That would be me, whenever you're
course.
ready.
We're ready.
Oh, we have a hand raised in the audience. I don't know if
Oh, great.
Andrew, you speak now, or you want to wait until I give the intro to the item. That's up to you, or Brian. Brian, what do you think?
Andrew is with the Housing Task Force.
So she should probably go now.
Yeah.
Andrea, you're welcome. You have the floor. Please introduce yourself and proceed.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Andrea Pandolfi, and I am a member of the Housing Task Force and a resident of Patton Township. I wanted to share some thoughts on some things that have been brought up during the public comments thus far about this initiative and about the motives of the task force. The effort has been categorized as a recycled initiative. It's true that the township continues to look at ways to achieve more attainable housing because this is a pressing issue. However, this effort was undertaken by a group of people, many of whom were not a part of the previous discussions, but who want to see better opportunities for attainable housing. We're citizen volunteers working together, and we hope to work with everyone. It's been stated that Park Forest has been targeted based on home value. The value of the homes was never part of our discussion. What we did discuss is proximity to employment, services, and shopping. This was guided by a 90-minute presentation that we received during our second task force meeting, which informed us about the importance of connectivity for travel on foot, by bike, and through public transportation. It's been suggested that single-unit homes would be chopped up into multifamily, and this is not an accurate characterization of allowing an ADU. Negative connotations have been assigned from the very start of discussions about ADUs and duplexes. This is a little unclear to me. My mother lives in a duplex. There's a single woman of similar age in the other half. In my neighborhood, there are duplexes alongside single-unit homes. So this is unclear to me why this is being characterized as inherently bad, just sort of from the terminology. Regarding rentals, comments have implied that families don't live in rental units, and we know that to be false. It has also been suggested that allowing an owner to live in the ADU could result in up to 5 unrelated people living in the main home, but Patton Township zoning caps that at 3 unrelated people. There have been repeated descriptions of the family residential aspect and statements that other types of residents will change the dynamic of the neighborhood. In the same way that we aim to respect the current residents of the neighborhoods, we strive to respect the potential residents of the neighborhoods, whether they be single-person households, couples, roommates, or retirees. A friend of our family is a young teacher in the school district. The first couple of years, he lived in a rental home in Park Forest and rode his bike to work. He lived with 2 roommates he didn't know. An ADU would provide a wonderful opportunity for a teacher to have a more private living situation as a young professional. The State College School District is one of the largest employers in Center County, with other young teachers facing the same affordability challenges as our friend. If we want teachers to be a part of the communities surrounding the schools, we need to face the reality about their salaries compared with the cost of housing in this market. Mount Nittany Medical Center and Geisinger Clinic are also among the largest employers, and many young medical professionals have student loans that burden their opportunities for housing, whether that be for the monthly payment or because of debt ratios. Recently, a team of Penn State students won a college case competition in which the goal was to develop a plan for a real-world mixed-income housing project. The team members were majors in finance, risk management, and entrepreneurship, and they took the top prize over 30 other teams. That is the type of energy that we hope will be brought to this initiative. This is the time to think through the possibilities, embrace the positive outcome opportunities, and identify the regulations that will be consistent with those outcomes. This is not to suggest that there aren't concerns that should be considered. but more to say that the concerns should be guideposts and not roadblocks to the conversation. The Housing Task Force provided recommendations, and we appreciate the detailed work of the Planning Commission to develop a specific framework that will serve the community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. And I appreciate your line, guideposts, not roadblocks. So, well said. Nicole, do you want to take it from here?
Do we want to let Mr. Payne?
Oh, go ahead.
first?
Yeah, Jim, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. One other point that was brought up previously was as far as the targeting aspect. We're looking at this from a zoning issue, whether it's R2, R1, A1, whatever. And some of the developments have homeowner associations. And the homeowner association covenants can supersede township ordinance as far as restrictions. So a homeowners association covenant may not allow ADUs.
Correct.
And Park Forest does not have a homeowners association. But there are other areas, R2, that fall under what we're looking at. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Just real quick on that, the covenants. So typically speaking, most covenants in this area have a 25-year shelf life. So unless they're collectively extended, they do tend to expire in a matter of time, typically 25 years, at which that point it would just revert to the township or rules and regulations. Go ahead, Nicole.
Okay. So just to go through the background real quick, as I think most of us know at this point, we are looking at ADUs because it is a recommendation from the 2021 Patton Township Housing Task Force report that was viewed by the board back in October of 2021, and the board recommended sending all of the planning and zoning recommendations from that report to the Planning Commission for further review and research to then make a recommendation back to the board. So we are starting with the accessory dwelling units portion of those recommendations. So we've been discussing what ADUs are and that they're essentially an accessory dwelling unit on a property that's subordinate to the primary dwelling unit. But again, I'd also like to remind everybody that in addition to the report that the task force wrote, they also produced 3 videos with CNET that have been in circulation and are still available to be viewed today. And we are looking at working with the task force to create some more. So as you mentioned earlier, Brian, several of our neighboring municipalities in the center region do regulate accessory dwelling units. Township staff here in Patton have been in conversation with both planner and zoning officers in those 3 municipalities to discuss some of the questions that were asked were, are you seeing any issues? What do you wish you would have known prior to writing your regulations that you would maybe change if you had known them then? And the overwhelming response from all of those individuals is that they are not seeing any issues with the way they have written their regulations or having issues in their communities with the fact that they allow ADUs in certain areas. So, and as we know through other conversation and some of the research the task force has done, ADUs can be beneficial not just for the person living in the ADU, but also to the homeowner that can use that income from that ADU to pay their mortgage or their other bills, or maybe age in place because they can downsize into the accessory dwelling unit. So in between meetings from April and tonight, staff did send out a 5-question survey to the Planning Commission to help guide our conversation for tonight. So we are going to talk specifically about those 5 questions tonight. And as you know, I'm continuing to attach the progress outline that we are basing off the AARP guide to help, again, guide where we've been, what we've discussed, and what we still need to look at as we continue to work through whether or not we would like to potentially regulate accessory dwelling units in Patton Township. So with the survey, 6 of the 7 Planning Commission members did take the survey. So the flow of the conversation for tonight will be each item will have a brief description. Then the breakdown of College, Ferguson, and Harris Township and how they regulate that specific item. And then the survey results and discussion are kind of molded into one to help guide some form of consensus among the Planning Commission so that we can continue to shape our regulations.
Nicole, this is Ellen. I just have one quick question.
Yeah.
In terms of the other townships, how long have their ADU regulations been in place?
That's actually a great question. I did not ask them that question, so I can go back and try to figure out. I know it's been at least 3 years because they've all been here as long as I have, but I can go back and try to figure out exactly how long.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out how, you said there were no issues, but if they haven't really had a chance to sort of catch on at this point, would that give us any more information?
Yep, that's a great question. I will revisit that for next time if I can. All right. So yeah, with that, a few reminders. As Jim Payne had mentioned about the HOAs, the township does not monitor HOA covenants, so it would be up to the homeowner to make sure that an ADU would be permitted regardless of what the township says with their homeowner association. So we would not know that at the township level. Also wanted to remind everybody that if the Planning Commission chooses to potentially allow these in specific zoning districts, if no other zoning regulations are changed, that whether or not an ADU would technically be allowed on your property, you will still have to adhere to all of the other impervious coverage, setbacks, height restrictions, any other of those restrictions. To be able to fit the accessory unit on your lot, you need to make sure that you are adhering to all other zoning regulations. I did want to address a couple questions I got via email. Because of the survey, short-term rentals have come up in conversation a couple of times. So I just wanted to reiterate that Patton Township does not currently regulate short-term rentals and at this point wouldn't look to do so. So yes, it is possible that if somebody were to add an ADU to their property, it could be used as a short-term rental. However, I do know that College Township has begun regulating their short-term rentals, so I intend to monitor their program. So should Patton Township see a need or desire to regulate short-term rentals, especially if some sort of ADU ordinance is adopted, I can definitely be kind of up to date on what our neighbors are doing for that. I also wanted to reiterate that while this is technically an affordable housing measure, this would be kind of considered more naturally occurring affordable housing. So this wouldn't be a part of any sort of program. This would not be mandated that only a certain income could live there. There would be no administration of anything, that it would simply just be potentially cheaper because it is a smaller unit that is connected to someone else's property. So that would be the only metric that would make this affordable housing, is that by nature, these units are typically more affordable than some of the other units that we see today in the township. I also wanted to mention that ADUs are inherently more environmentally friendly, particularly the ones that are interior or attached, as they take up less space, so they leave more of that open space. And they are also adding more housing into the existing network, so you're not building new roads, you're not adding all sorts of other amenities that you would see building an entirely new subdivision. So while we wouldn't necessarily be looking to ask for any sort of environmental or sustainability elements woven into this with the building materials or anything of that nature, these types of units are inherently more environmentally friendly because you are building more within the existing infrastructure. They're using less resources and it's a smaller footprint that they're being built on. So those are just a few things that I wanted to kind of reiterate why we're looking at accessory dwelling units. So what staff is looking for from the Planning Commission, as I mentioned, we're going to go through the 5 main items outlined in the agenda tonight. Hopefully we can reach some sort of consensus to keep building out our regulations. If we're unable to do that, if you could give staff some direction on what else you might need to know to help inform your decisions. And then finally, if we make it all the way through this, as we discussed last time, kind of came up as we're looking at the outline, some things that you wanted to know about before we could make other decisions. So again, just be thinking about the other things that we need to discuss so that we can kind of come up with what we need to start with for our next meeting. That's a little bit secondary to the main 5, but again, we're just going to kind of keep working through our main outline. So with that, I don't know if we should pause, if anybody has anything they'd like to say, or if we want to jump right into the configuration types.
I just have a quick question.
Yes.
Are we going to be like sending out a survey or posting a survey online for people in Patton Township to let their opinions be known on different questions or different issues on it? Or are we going to have like an information session once we come up with some? I mean, I just think it's really important that once we get to a certain point, that we get feedback from the residents in Patton Township on what they're feeling.
Well, we could certainly look at doing a survey to send to residents. We could maybe do a random sample survey so we don't have to try to get every single resident. But I would say that is kind of some of the purpose to doing these work sessions, that these are public meetings. These are intended to be for the residents of Patton Township to be involved in shaping their community and talking to the Planning Commission and therefore talking to the Board of Supervisors with what they would like to see. And then I would say that once we get to a point where the Planning Commission feels good about making recommendations to the board, there's always the process that we have to follow per the municipality's planning code, where we would have to send notice to those that would be impacted by this. And then the board would schedule a public hearing, and there are time limits that those take place in so that people have time to be notified and to be aware and make arrangements to come to the public hearing and talk to the board about how they feel about it. So that's kind of the minimum that will happen. But as I mentioned, if the Planning Commission would like to see a survey, we can certainly, once we get a little bit more of an idea of what the Planning Commission might like to recommend, we can craft a survey to poll the residents.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to say that's probably maybe at the top of our list for the next meeting or the meeting after that, is what kind of public outreach we want to do, because I know there's been questions asked about whether we're going to do a survey, and it was discussed briefly at the board last week. So Nicole, if we can add that to the list of things of, survey, random survey, let everybody involved, or open houses, or a combination of all those things. So that's something we can have future discussion on.
But my question is a survey, if we were to make some headway this evening, we'd have a little bit more focus as to how to present a survey. I think right now, we're kind of like chasing cats. So until we can get a little more focus, I think once we get a little more focus.
Yeah, I think we all agree on that. We don't have enough focus yet to get the information out, because we need to answer these questions, at least these 5 questions, and then see what else is on our list for next
But
meeting.
if we can kind of get some direction on this, then I think we'd be ready for that. And then the other thing too, just so everybody who does pay attention, all of these meetings that Jim, you guys are having, and Nicole, all of them are always promoted, and where you're encouraging community participation. I'm certain of that. Is that, and are they? So if a resident today just randomly finds out, through the grapevine, that there is meetings, they are being encouraged to attend. I'm accurate with that, correct?
Are you talking about Planning Commission meetings or
No.
the Housing Task Force meetings?
Yeah, the task force meetings, they're all, are they, if one wanted to jump in on the next task force meeting, how does one go about doing that? And are they
Those not
posted on the
public
website?
meetings.
We'll say that.
But those are not public meetings,
Uh-huh.
so the public is not invited to attend those. However, I do plan to report what is discussed at those meetings to the Planning Commission, so that will be part of the public record. And if at any point anybody has any concerns, in addition to coming to the Planning Commission or the board, they can contact me and other Patton Township staff
Yeah, there
to
you
voice
go.
their concerns and ask their questions.
Yeah, so maybe we can hone this in far enough to be able to have a leg to stand on to identify what we're trying to accomplish. So do we want to go through the items that they're presented here? I guess starting with the first one, Nicole, is that what we want to do?
Yep. So the first thing that I felt we should discuss as we kind of work through these is to determine the configuration of the accessory dwelling units. So there's a little graphic there to kind of show you some of the different ways that an ADU could potentially be constructed, whether it be detached, attached, whether it be interior or part of a garage. So College Township does allow either detached or attached in their residential districts, but they only allow attached in their commercial districts. Ferguson Township also allows either detached or attached, and they only allow them in one of their residential districts, but they allow either. And they do allow attached ADUs in 3 of their commercial districts. Harris Township requires all ADUs to be attached, whether it be in a residential or commercial district. So the survey results were a little bit inconclusive on exactly how the Planning Commission would like to configure ADUs. So if we could have a discussion on how you all are feeling about that, what else you might like to know before making a decision, or if we can reach some sort of consensus, because there are definitely other ways that we can look at regulations to determine the permitted configurations.
I'll go first with my preference, and that is, I don't have a preference whether they are attached or detached. However, if detached, I wouldn't want them to be in front of, between the house and the street. I think that would be inappropriate. So I think if we're going to have, if as a township we're going to allow detached, then I think they need to be more modest in terms of visibility, which would place them towards the rear or sides, back sides of the property. So I guess my preference is that the front of any detached would not be closer to the road than the front of the house.
Gotcha.
And that's my only preference.
Okay, do we already have setbacks that say that?
Yes, so so Sharon asked a good question, and what are our setbacks? And typically speaking, you know, every area is a little bit different, but the front of the house normally is X amount from the street, usually about 25 feet. It depends.
Yeah, for most residential areas, it's in that 25 to 30 foot range.
So typically, Sharon, most lots have a bigger backyard than they do front yard. Most houses have a bigger backyard than a front yard. So by nature, for us to say that we would, if we were to allow detached, that we would want it in the backyard, typically that's where the most, that would usually be the only spot that one would fit anyways.
Right.
I just don't see, I don't think we want to drive down Patton Township and see accessory dwelling units in the front yards. That's my only preference. I'm anxious to hear what everybody else has to say.
Another question, if you allow detached, since a lot of the lots in some of the more congested neighborhoods are smaller, would people be applying for variances?
They wouldn't be, no, everything would have to comply with existing zoning regulations. So you're not going to get a variance for this sort of thing.
Okay.
It's not, it's under Pennsylvania law, you can only get a variance because of something that you didn't cause to happen. So you wanting to put an ADU on your lot is something that you caused to happen. Therefore, you're not eligible for a variance.
Okay.
So you'd have to meet all the current existing setbacks for your lot with the ADU. Quite frankly, there may be some lots that are just too small to have an ADU.
A lot of them would be.
Okay.
Now,
I couldn't tell you if it's a lot or not, but there are some that you couldn't put an ADU in because there's no room for them.
well, yeah, so like, I can only refer to like my own property. I'm on Devonshire. So the front of my property, I believe, is the back, I think, is 25 feet setbacks, and I think the front is 20. And I think the sides are probably around 10 to 15.
Okay.
But if we don't really have to, it doesn't have to be an either or right here. We could say, we could have an answer that says we would only allow attached ADUs if the property, it would be attached only if the property was X, a certain size, and then,
Well, let's go around and get everybody's opinion before we
Very good.
start into
yeah.
too much detail. I think Mr. Payne and Mr. Burnett both have their hands up.
Yep. Go ahead, Mr. Payne.
Thank you. I pretty much agree with what you said so far. I think any type should be allowed, and it should be up to the owner to decide what they want to do as far as an ADU. But I do agree with you entirely on the nothing in the front. It should be subservient to the view, street view, somehow. That's where I stand, and any type of ADU should be allowed. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Burnett.
I actually concur with your statement about allowing any ADU and, but, you know, whether it's detached or attached, but it not being in front of the primary dwelling structure. So I actually can get behind that, and I also support Jim Payne's statement.
Thank you. Mr. Schmidt.
I concur with you, Brian, on everything that you said, and you know, I think it's important that if I'm looking at a structure from the street view, that, you know, I think that it looks pleasing to the eye. So I would concur with everything that you said, Brian.
Any other planning commission members have any thoughts, comments, or public?
I do.
Sharon, go ahead.
I feel that it should be attached and it needs to be within the envelope of the house. I don't think it's fair to the neighbors to be, whether they be on either side of you or across the road or you know, somewhere down the street. I mean, I think the neighborhood needs to look the way that people bought into it as. And so I think it needs to be within the envelope of the home itself.
So one of the things that
Let's see if Ellen and Bob have comments.
Yeah, I have one, I agree with everything that was said along the lines of where Brian was coming from, but actually with Sharon's comment, I wonder, it seems like in reading some of the materials that were provided to us, there were some actual design requirements that the building would be, or the additional dwelling unit would be consistent with the design of the rest of the property. So to me, if we could do something like that, it might address Sharon's comment and also conform to, being flexible in terms of what people can and can't do. That's my comment.
Thank you. Jim, I see you've got your hand up. Oh, you're just, your thumbs up. Any comments from any other planning commission members? So Sharon, I think that you brought a good point, and I believe that, and I also noticed that we could dig deeper if we were to, want to. We certainly could state that if we were to agree to allow detached, to have it be, to match the main structure. But that gets a little, I think that becomes a little more of a challenge to define, but I don't think that that's something we can't do. I definitely think we can.
Yeah, one of the things on the main outline is under design standards would be just that, and it could be just as basic as saying that the siding and the roofing and the facade and the aesthetics to the exterior of any attachment or detached ADU will have to be of the same of the primary dwelling unit. So Ellen is correct that some of the AARP materials does speak to that. And that would definitely be something, so the consensus I'm hearing from the group of you is that you are okay with allowing the flexibility of either an interior attached or detached, but there will be additional stipulations on an attached or detached depending on the configuration of where it would be located. And we can certainly start drafting some regulations that speak to not being in front of the house, or even saying that it needs to be behind. So we can start drafting that and then kind of tweak it from there. And then I can make sure that next month we start to dig deeper into the overall design standards as well.
Well, I don't like the detached idea because I think that will promote like overcrowding of
Sharon?
lots.
We're gonna go with the majority of what the planning commission members want.
Okay.
So your point's been noted, but unfortunately, you've been outvoted on this issue.
That said though, Sharon, I am sensitive where you're coming from. And this isn't, we're not, you know, we're just kind of, we're still collecting on this. I am in agreement that there are neighborhoods where that people are not gonna want, they're not gonna wanna look at just anything. Okay, so I think that the majority on this, I guess, is that the majority is that we would consider both attached and detached. Do you need anything more on item 1 in terms of guidance from us, Doug or Nicole? Is there anything on item?
I think I'm good to start working on stuff for next time.
Okay, so can we then move to, any other comments on item 1 before I move on to item 2? Wonderful. Item 2, eligibility, where could ADUs be developed?
So theoretically, big theoretical, ADUs could be permitted in any zoning district. Most of our neighbors do restrict that for residential, it could be with a single family dwelling unit, or it could be with commercial properties. So also with the agenda, I gave you links to our zoning map as well as the regional zoning map that is available on the CRPA website. So you could kind of look at, thank you, Alex, for pulling that up, to see some of the districts they allow them in to help maybe guide your thoughts on where they could be permitted in Patton Township. So some of this is kind of redundant, but just to kind of reiterate that College Township does allow with any single-family dwelling regardless of zoning district. They do also allow in a few of their commercial districts, and they do it by tenants. So you could have one dwelling unit per commercial tenant, so that's how they regulate. Ferguson Township, again, any single family, but it has to be within that one residential district, the Terrace Streetscape District. And then they have 3 commercial that they allow them in. And again, with Harris, they do allow with any single family dwelling regardless of zoning, and they allow with commercial buildings in some of their commercial districts as well. So the survey results did seem that the Planning Commission would be more comfortable designating actual zoning districts as opposed to maybe going any single family residence route. So this conversation is going to be a little trickier. We already know that. But if you have thoughts on what zoning districts you feel strongly should or should not allow an accessory dwelling unit, I think we can go ahead and get into that discussion.
I'm sorry, can you repeat what Ferguson does right now
So
in terms of commercial?
one of their residential districts allows them, which would mean any single-family home in that one residential district could have an ADU. They also allow commercial buildings in their village, general commercial and office commercial districts to have dwelling units.
Okay, Jim, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, the problem I would have is what do we do with commercial the way it's set up in Patton Township? I don't see most commercial properties as conducive to having a ADU.
Yeah,
Well, it would probably occur as a redevelopment of an existing property. I would say that's the most likely way you would see ADUs get incorporated into commercial is as buildings age out, and then landowner would look at knocking an existing building down and redoing something, and at that point, they're probably more likely to add dwelling units.
Or couldn't we work at that from the commercial side? Like
Yeah,
that?
we have something in place already for smaller commercial lots. It hasn't ever been used, but, so at this point, I wouldn't worry too much about commercial use. We'd probably be more productive to concentrate on residential districts.
I'm fine with just limiting it now to residential.
I just have a question. I asked it last time only because I really don't understand about the rural versus the residential. Is it the same?
I'm not sure what you mean by the same. We
I
permit,
meant,
we permit single-family residential units in the A1 district, which is the rural. We also have a district called R1, which is typically 1 acre plus lots that are on septic. We have a residential district called R2, which is the normal 1/4 acre lots, the park forest type. And then we have some residential districts that permit smaller lots too. So in terms of, I mean, when you ask is rural the same, I'm not sure exactly what you're.
oh, I just meant, is it under the umbrella of residential? Or is it a
Yes.
separate zoning area?
Yeah, yeah.
altogether?
Basically, it's a different zoning district, but you're gonna find uses are gonna really come in 4 big categories. One's residential, one's commercial, third one would be industrial, and the fourth would be institutional. So when we say residential, we mean any place where you see a house is a residential, is a zoning district that permits a residential use.
But then, Doug, do we break down the residential? Within the residential, there's and.
There are probably, I didn't count them, but I'm gonna say probably 8 different, including planned communities, at least 8 different districts that permit residential dwellings. So,
And so, just from a practical standpoint, some of our properties that are on on-site septics, those septic systems are designed per number of bedrooms for that house. Is that correct?
correct.
So would it not be accurate then to, how would we just throw another load on that septic system?
Well, you can't.
Correct.
You can't add a
So
bit, well, it.
So we can eliminate that code?
No, I wouldn't say, irrelevant of whether it's an ADU or just another bedroom. If you say you live somewhere that had on a house on a septic that was designed for 4 bedrooms.
Yes,
If you wanted to add a bedroom,
correct.
you'd have to go through the process of upgrading your septic system.
And you would treat this the same way?
Yeah, and so you'd go through the process with the sewage enforcement office. So for an ADU, could be the same thing. Now,
Yeah.
if you had a house on a septic system that had 3 bedrooms and it was designed for 5, you could add 2 bedrooms. All that we have for anything that's built in the last 30 years, we have really good records, so we could tell that.
Okay, good.
So
our job-
again, with an ADU, depending on what you originally designed your septic system for, you may or may not be able to do it without. Or probably if you have a detached, well, I just say, there are things you could do.
It's a non-issue, because we would address that at that
Well,
time.
the property owner would have to address it.
Correct.
Yeah, so it's, anything we do with ADUs does not give anybody any special permission to do anything they aren't currently allowed to do, other than add another dwelling unit. All other regulations remain in place and remain the same.
And I think on that same note, Doug, that a lot of properties are just not going to be eligible because by the time you do the setbacks.
You know, and until we go through and start looking, I would caution you to stay away from making statements like that, because we don't know how many is a lot. We don't know if it is a lot. We don't know that. We don't know that. You're making an opinion, or preference those things, say, in my opinion, I think. But from staff's permission, we're not going to agree with you on that, because if you want us to go out and take a look and see how many lots in Park Forest could we put a 600 square foot accessory dwelling unit on, we can do that and give you the answer.
No.
So let's we can ask the questions, we can decide whether it's worth it to do the research. But I would just say, you know, there are questions that we don't know the answers to, but I wouldn't make an opinion about things without some sort of backup. Like I said.
So then the factual statement is, all accessory dwelling units must be within the setbacks.
Correct.
And the setbacks are what they are.
Correct, and they will have to meet whatever regulations are in place for sewer and water also.
Correct. Okay, so Planning Commission, we need a little guidance, so what's our preference on item number 2?
Well, maybe if there are places you don't want to see accessory dwelling units in residential districts, like, you know, the question's been posed, is the R2 district an appropriate one for ADUs or not? If there's some places you don't think we should be doing them based on some rationale, then why don't we throw those out to start with?
My preference would be no R2s, because would be kind of odd to have an R2 is a multi-residential property as it is. It's already multi.
No,
R3
okay,
is multi.
let's be, R2 is Park Forest, so that's single, okay? So
Misspoke.
don't, when we talk about zoning in Patton Township, we have to be very specific about what we're referring to. So if you think of R2 from a building code reference, that's multifamily. From a zoning reference, R2 is Park Forest.
Would it also be
So-
like top,
So maybe, pardon?
would it also be like top trees?
Toff trees is mixed, is a planned community which requires a whole mix of uses.
Okay.
Includes single family, multifamily, and other uses. So, let's start, let's back up a little bit and ask, what questions do you have about residential zoning that may influence your, okay, let's talk neighborhoods. Do you think we should permit ADUs in Park Forest? That might be a,
Yes, providing that they meet the setbacks.
yeah, well, that's let's all agree that that's a given. You have to meet all the existing regulations regarding setbacks, height.
Yeah, so I would say, I would say where it would not go is commercial. I don't know if I have any other strong preference other than that. Or if we did commercial, maybe it's just one. Planning
If I may,
Commission?
we could also talk about lot sizes. So if it's too broad to try to look at the zoning map and talk neighborhoods, and, you know, we've established now that regardless of where we might allow these, we're not going to change other zoning regulations, so you will still have to meet everything else to technically be eligible and permitted to build one. Do we maybe want to think about a lot size restriction as opposed to a specific zoning district restriction?
Hang on, Bill. Nicole, if we did, in planning commission, if we did a lot size, it sure does make it, the whole thing, a whole lot more understandable for the public. If we do choose to go down that road. Mr. Burnett?
So my feeling here is, was it College Township that has essentially the taxpayers, Nicole? Where they're allowed one residential per commercial unit?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to go out on a limb and say I'm fine with that because, again, I believe that somewhere down the line, somebody will be willing to redevelop the little commercial areas that we have. It currently doesn't fit right now, but we should be leaving these to be loose enough that somebody can say, hey, look, I'm willing to come in, buy this office and redo it to be more in line with the taxpayer. I actually like the College Township thing and College Township one, and I would actually see if I can talk Jim into supporting me on that one as well. Okay, cool. So I would go with the College Township one with doing the taxpayers. If you're not familiar with what a taxpayer is, it's usually the bottom is commercial, and then the top two floors will be the home for the person that actually technically used to run the shop, but that's not followed as much anymore. But I would like to see taxpayers brought back into Patton Township if in the future. But right now, I know that we don't. If you take a look at like the Wegmans, Target, and all that shopping center area right now. Those wouldn't fit there, but hopefully someday maybe we could have something where they would fit. And I think ultimately what we want to do is we want to give the property owner the flexibility within reason to do things. So as long as it looks good, makes sense, meets all other zoning requirements, and I think the only thing for doing a taxpayer in commercial would be how do we handle any sort of on-street, off-street parking, and I'd kick that back over to staff and have staff come up with, provide us with more of a understanding of what needs to be done. I wouldn't worry, now going just to the residential stuff, Brian, I'm with you. There are going to be some areas that are just too small, but they're going to be too small because they're not going to meet regulation
Correct.
Anyways for these things. So I don't think we have to worry about saying, hey, no, you can't have it here, or hey, no, you can't have it here, because I think the regulations, that minimum 300 square foot, and any staff correct me if I'm wrong, that minimum 300 square foot is going to make it difficult for our smaller, lot sizes and our smaller dwellings to even bring in an ADU, or even qualify. So there's going to be a lot of self-limiting here, economic self-limiting, and that's fine, If you can't do it, you can't do it. But if you can and you want to, let's give you the option to.
The only thing I would say is some of the smaller lots could theoretically maybe fit an interior, like if you were going to redo your attic or your basement or convert part of your garage, but when we get to the parking conversation, you're going to have to figure out how to fit the parking on the lot. So even if you're not technically expanding the footprint of the building or adding another structure, you're still going to have to figure out how you're going to get that additional parking while still meeting the coverage and the impervious and the setbacks and, all those things as well. So even that wouldn't even really be a way around it because you're still going to have to manipulate the property further.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm a little not so concerned about getting all the gory details down is because I know that in the world of all of our regulations and everything like that, all the gory details will actually self-limit most of this. So the parking, the impervious, and everything. And I guess that's the 3 years of the zoning appeals board that, coming back to sort of help me out here. But, so I say just, as far as commercial, yeah, it doesn't work right now, but let's leave it open. Let's adopt the College Township one. It seems to work. They don't have problems with it. Yeah, unless they do have problems with it, and I have to admit that I was
They
paying
say
attention.
they don't at this
Yeah,
point.
so
You know-
go ahead.
Bill, one of the nice things about adding it in commercial is, just like Penn State University, our president is going to live in the president's house as a benefit of housing. So if I owned a commercial property, or I had a business in my commercial property and I had an employee that wanted housing, I could say, hey, you know what, the third floor is part of the compensation package. So I think it does give a lot of our properties, so it certainly has a home. My biggest reason for us to attaching a lot size to, let's just say, if we attach a lot size to this verbiage, it makes it a whole lot more understandable to the community about what it is that actually is occurring. So in the effort to avoid all these false narratives, I think we're doing the community a favor, and I think we're doing staff a favor, so we don't have all these variances come in, or if it's not gonna fit on the lot, yada, yada, yada. So why don't we just start out with defining the lot size, so that way we don't have a lot of misunderstandings. So I'm in favor of
Let's get the other input from the other members about the basic question about which zoning districts they'd like to see.
Okay. All right, so Jim, you have a question, and Alex. Jim, go first.
Alex was first.
Go ahead, Alex.
Okay, thank you, Jim. I wanted to put forth an idea for consideration by the Planning Commission. I think Bob was here, you were here, Brian, and Rich, regarding the sketch plan that came in about 3 years ago for this property out here in the Planned Airport District. So, as you all three might recall as well, we talked about rezoning the Planned Airport District. There's
Yeah.
a lot of potential out here. I recently, this morning, talked to John Sepp about this property owner here, Bigatel, and they're still interested in higher density housing out in the Planned Airport District.
Yeah.
And I believe Nicole Pollock received a call about this. It's over 100 acres out here that's interested in development as well. So perhaps the Planning Commission could do some affordable housing initiative out here in Planned Airport District. Just an idea.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great idea.
Because you have the Burnell Park is out there, you have Nittany Valley Sports Center.
Yeah. And a lot of future growth. And not only that, but in the future, we have 2 medical facilities where there will be jobs nearby to support both the Mount Nittany and I guess it's Geisinger behind Cracker Barrel. So there,
Penn Highlands, yeah.
Penn Highland, thank you. So we have a lot of future employers that are not here now but will be. Jim, anything else, Alex?
No, I just wanted to bring up that point.
Yeah. Jim, you wanted to, did you have a question, Jim? Your volume's off.
I thought I clicked it. I think we should include the commercial now. If nothing else, like Bill said, it's for the future also. So if there is a small place that wants to slightly redevelop their property, they can include something like that. So it would already be on the books.
Okay. Is that the consensus? I'm fine with that. Sharon?
Yeah.
Sharon's fine with that. Anyone else oppose having the commercial be included now?
Nope.
Okay.
But I have a question about the airport planning district. Is that that's separate, that doesn't have anything to do with the ADUs, right?
I mean, other than that, it's just another zoning district that you could say, go ahead and allow them in the Planned Airport District. But yeah, that was sort of Alex reiterating, we talked about rezoning the PAD a few years ago, and kind of, it got shelved when COVID started, so, yeah, it's just another consideration as we're talking about laws in.
Okay.
Write something into those regulations as well. But yes, I mean, we could also say they could have ADUs in the planned airport district.
Nicole, do you have enough direction then for item 2?
Yeah, I think so, and I just wanted to reiterate, because it does sound like there's a consensus about commercial. We can look as staff at the lot sizes and maybe try to figure out ways to reframe how
Well,
to.
let's hold up, Nicole. Brian's talked about lot sizes, but nobody else has, so I think we need to, before we go down that road, Rich, do you have some thoughts on that issue?
No, I don't. I was just trying to think in my head that if I just took a look at my own house, how I would be able to fit anything on my property, based on the setbacks, which I don't know how that would even be possible for me.
My point exactly.
Well, we could take a look at it for you if you'd like.
No, I mean, I'm not real concerned about it because I don't have any intent to invite my parents to move in and live with me anytime soon. I think honestly, Brian, from my perspective, I think what we have in place currently is going to take care of a lot of the concerns, which, that might not even be the right words, to infringe on other people's properties, because I don't see viably how I could add anything to my existing lot. So those are kind of my thoughts.
So Rich, I'm in agreement with you in terms of, my intent is not that it's gonna really limit anything. The only thing I think that the lot size is gonna do is limit misinformation. That's the only thing I think it's going to accomplish. And for that
Yeah,
reason,
and I think
that's
that,
it.
like, if I was trying to teach some group about this issue, I think for them to visually have, like a square, like a square area or square footage or some type of perimeter of what, like a viable lot size would be, I think would help to bring people some clear perspective on what on what we have been discussing over the past, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. So those are my thoughts, Brian, and, I'm thinking along the same lines as you.
Yeah, I don't believe it's necessary I only believe it's necessary to have a better understanding of what, so that we don't have a lot of just all kinds of rumors.
I think probably we're move on from this one, but I think staff will go ahead and do up some example lots to show you, what's possible on specific lots in Park Forest, because, as Nicole said, remember, we've already said you can do an interior unit, so there's no expansion to the building. All you need to do is find room for one more parking space on your property. So I think we'll take a look at some specific lots and without putting addresses on them or anything, and just show you some examples of what the setbacks are on certain lots. We'll pick lots of different sizes, but routine sizes, and bring you back in and show you how where you could put a detached unit or an extension, an attached unit. And then we got to talk about parking here in a little bit and where you could add parking. So give people a sense of what is possible. Okay?
Yeah, but as you say that, I can think of scenarios if we leave it.
Well, we're not making any final decisions. I'm just trying to give you more information to make decisions on it.
Yeah, but devil's advocate is this. So now we have a really small neighborhood. The houses are fairly close together, which would be behind College 9 Theater. And those are pretty tight. So now I want to be able to put an accessory dwelling inside. Then I can raise the roof on my garage and make that happen.
And you may or may not have to add a parking space depending on what all gets decided here, so.
But, yeah, so I'm just, have to, I hear what you're
Well,
saying.
we're not, the
I
question
understand.
is it possible or not?
I get it.
And I think staff wants to show you whether it's possible or not. Now, it may not be the configuration you like, or you think's pretty, or something like that, but remember, we're dealing with the entire realm of property owners. So I can guarantee you there's somebody who will want to do it, so.
Yeah.
Just be-
Again, my motivation was just from helping the community to understand it. It's that simple.
Yep.
So I don't think we need to talk any more about item 2. Nicole, do you have a pretty good sense?
I think so.
Is there somewhere where we want to get into the conversation, whether it be item 1 through 5 about owner occupied?
Not today, but we'll put it on the list for next week.
Why
Or
not
for next
today?
month.
Well,
Let's get
correct me
through
if
1
I'm
through
wrong, but
5
I thought
first.
at the previous meetings, we decided, or the planning commission wanted to see at least one of the units be owner occupied.
Yeah.
That's my preference. I have a strong preference
We
on
did.
that.
We did decide that.
I think we
Okay.
voted on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't need to hash that. All right, item 3.
Honestly, that's like the one thing I think we've kind of,
I thought so. Okay, very good.
yeah, it's a great reminder that yes, we have consensus on that one.
Thank you. So item 3, design standard size.
All right, so at our last meeting, we had Dr. Walt Schneider, who is the director of Center Region Code Agency, talk to us. Actually, I think that was the last meeting, it doesn't matter, it's one of our previous meetings. So we kind of shook out that there will be this kind of natural way of limiting how small they could be. So at this point, the township could regulate how large they could be. So College Township has a percentage that it cannot exceed 25% of the finished gross living area of the principal dwelling for their residential ADUs, because again, they allow them in commercial, so that doesn't apply for that. Ferguson Township, they do allow that they could be more than one floor, so they do kind of distinguish that the ground floor cannot be more than 600 square feet with a maximum of 800 square feet for the entire unit in their residential. And Harris Township just has a blanket that the accessory dwelling unit cannot exceed 1,000 square feet. So the survey results from the Planning Commission did indicate that there is interest in having a maximum size. So the Planning Commission should discuss what an acceptable threshold for that could be. There's a couple different ways that you could do that. You could do a standard square footage. You could do that it has to be smaller than the principal unit. You could do that it could only be a percentage of the principal unit, or it could be some kind of combination thereof. And it could be a stipulation of, whichever one's smaller, or however the Planning Commission would like to see that happen.
It's a lot of options.
Yeah.
Jim, what are your thoughts?
I would lean toward the combination percentage and maximum square footage. I mean, if you have a tiny house, one of the smaller ones, 25% might not be a livable ADU. At the same time, I don't think you want a 3,000 square foot ADU either, so it's got to be a lot smaller than the primary.
The other thing too, Jim, about the percentage that I struggle with a little bit is a ranch home has a really big basement. A lot of times you can have 1,000 square feet in a ranch basement. So, in that scenario, you have a walkout ranch basement, why would we want to limit it to 25%, And then the percentage, that's my next question. Percentage, is that above grade and below grade? How are we defining percentage?
College Township, I believe, defines it as gross living area.
Well,
Of the
finished
principal.
area,
Which is both above grade and below grade.
correct.
Everything's finished. If you can have a percentage, say 25% or X amount of square feet, whichever is larger.
I like that. Rich, go ahead, you have a question?
No, I would vote for 25 or 1,000 max, similar to what Jim said. In terms of having both as like a hybrid model. So those are my thoughts.
I like that. Sharon, what are your thoughts?
Haven't decided yet.
Bob, how about you?
A percentage is the way I'm winning right now.
You want percentage, only a percentage combination with minimum square footage?
Percentage only.
Percentage only? Yes, and what percentage were you thinking?
25. If it results in an area that is smaller than needed, then you wouldn't build. Nobody would want to live there. So I think 25% of the size of the house, the living area, would cover most cases pretty well.
Well, I keep thinking about that whole basement idea. I mean, that could be literally on a ranch house, almost 40 to 50% of the square footage.
Correct. I mean, the ranch house is the mirror image below grade, above grade, often.
I don't want to throw another variable in, but you could also distinguish between interior and attached and detached. So if you want to have different parameters for an interior ADU than the parameters for the exterior or the detached.
Oh, Nicole, I really like that idea.
I like that too.
I really like that idea.
Okay. So do people want to change their answers based on the two different scenarios? Because I would imagine, and maybe this is just what I would think, that even if it is interior, you're not going to want that to be larger than what's left of the rest of the house, correct?
Correct.
Right.
I don't want to speak for any of you, but just considering that as well, that if you allow the interior, you're still probably going to want to put some sort of limitation.
I was remembering the conversation last time, and how much space, they were talking, the gentleman was talking about the different sizes of bathrooms and kitchens, and it just seems 1,000 square feet seems like a pretty large additional dwelling unit. So that seems pretty big to me, considering what was discussed.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. 1,000 square feet is easily a two-bedroom apartment.
It seemed like he was coming in around 700 square feet. Do I remember that correctly?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what I remember.
another way to think of, the smaller the size, the more able we're gonna be to limit how many people live there also.
So if we were to do a size based on attached and detached, are we all in agreement that detached could not exceed 700?
I agree.
Depends on lot size and the primary structure.
That's correct, but that's true with everything we've been talking about, depends on the setbacks.
Out R1, 1 acre lot, you got more than enough space for a 1,000-foot ADU.
Yes, we do.
Again, I lean towards the economy will self-regulate this, because you're not going to get, to a point where whatever. So, I lean towards not having a maximum size, but at the same time, I can be talked into a percentage.
Well, how could you support not having a maximum size? In that scenario, the accessory dwelling unit is now bigger than the house.
But we were also talking about allowing, the people to step down and live in the accessory dwelling unit, so I don't see it as any different.
Well, it's still supposed to be accessory, not not a primary structure. I mean, it just feels like we're, authorizing a second home to be built.
Again, it will be regulated by how, it just comes down to lot size. I don't think somebody's gonna build a mansion on their 2-acre lot, as an accessory dwelling unit. The cost is such that it won't happen.
I prefer not to leave that to be chanced. So I think we need a minimum.
Maximum.
I'm sorry, maximum.
I kind of like what Ferguson Township did with the detached, the 600 square feet, and if somebody wanted to add a second floor area, another 200. If they had that, so that allows 800.
Yeah, it kept the footprint tight.
Right.
I'm going to suggest this. I think realistically, having staff come back and show us what, having them pull a bunch of lots and have them come up with what are the potentials for to be put in different areas.
I think you're right.
And that will tell us really quick whether or not the cap, whether we need a cap, 2, whether the cap should be something like 1,200 or come down, because they'll be able to show us, in Park Forest, it'd be like this, in my neighborhood, it'd be like this, in your neighborhood, it would be like this. So I think realistically, we need to have staff just sort of come back and show us, with the idea of, hey, look, what's the unlimited max size of these things based on, realistic? And we'll just say that the ADU is 1 floor. We're not going to say that they're going to build a 25-story building in their property, but it's just 1 floor, whether it's interior or exterior. What would be the max size of the ADU, theoretically? And from there, we can probably get an idea of what it is or what it should be, and maybe a max size is a legit reason to do. I just sort of sit back and I go, I don't want to be in a situation where we have good intentions of doing something, but those good intentions are causing more restrictions or problems down the line where we don't get this. So I would prefer to sort of step back and say, all right, what does staff have to say about this? And if there's something that staff says that it should be capped at, whether that be, I'm not going to even throw out a number, but if staff says it should be capped and here's how it should be capped, and they give legal reasoning or logical reasoning, not legal reasoning, but logical reasoning for that, then we should follow what staff says.
Okay, we can do that.
The only thing, Bill, in your comment, though, when you made the reference, it could be 1 floor only, that does limit the amount of.
What I meant by that is for them, when they're creating their ADU model for this, so that they're not having to say, oh yeah, there was a 3-story ADU, a 2-story ADU. Just make it simple for them, because I think realistically, most people, and again, this is an assumption, but I'm just giving a parameter to staff saying, hey, assume 1 floor ADU, and then go from there. And what would be the max size of a 1 floor ADU?
That's for detached, Bill?
For both, just an attached or detached.
Well, I think you're right, but I think we're going to be more informed and have more information to better answer this question.
Yep.
So let's table it. Moving on to something I think is easy, although when I say that, it often never is, parking. So what are our thoughts on parking? On-site parking only, street parking, combination of
Let
both?
Nicole go through the options that the other municipalities have and what came out of the survey first.
Perfect. Go ahead, Nicole.
And I did want to point out that at the end of our last session, our zoning officer offered to put together a chart that was attached as item 1.6 to show the different residential areas and what the parking is required. And that kind of our standard parking for each dwelling unit is 2 spaces. But, the ADU could be smaller, so it's not that, you would have to be bound to the 2 spaces, but that is kind of the overarching regulation in Patton Township. College Township requires one off-street vehicle parking space for an ADU. Ferguson didn't really have anything in their regulations that spoke specifically to parking for accessory dwelling units. And Harris Township requires 2 off-street parkings for an ADU. So the survey results indicated that the majority of you would like to see 1 additional space for an ADU. That could be acceptable. I realize, as I'm sure all of you do as well, that since we're still talking size, that could change, as well as kind of where they could be permitted. So kind of an alternative that we threw out was that it could be 1 parking space per unit as the minimum, and that additional parking spaces could be required kind of for each additional bedroom. So if it was a 2-bedroom, you would need 2, 3-bedroom would need 3, that sort of thing. But again, that's just a suggestion to kind of kick off discussions.
Actually, I think that's a really good idea, Nicole.
I agree.
Okay?
I'm okay with that.
No problem here.
Oh, great.
Agreed.
Who are we missing? Bob, Rich, did you guys weigh in?
Happy, happy, happy.
Oh,
Alright.
I could throw in a joke here and make it even worse for parking.
We're moving on.
Oh, okay, sorry, I thought we'd require something.
The chair says no.
All right.
What?
No jokes, I
Okay.
guess.
Oh,
All right. Parking was easy. Let's move on to number 5, quantity.
Hey, Brian, do you want to, I'll make a quick joke. Do you want to mark that down as the time you were right, that something was easy and it actually
Yeah,
was?
how about it?
Oh, burn.
I do. Okay, so quantity, and again, we realize now that this could change. So last time we started kind of talking about whether or not this would be just 1 ADU permitted per lot, or if there may be some areas in the township where it could be appropriate. I think our commercial conversation has sort of led to that idea that it could be possible to allow for more than 1 in certain commercial areas. As kind of mentioned already before, the other municipalities that allow them in the commercial, the standard for them is 1 dwelling unit per commercial tenant. So if it's a multiple kind of plaza style building that has more than 1 commercial entity, that's where you could get more than 1 unit. You know, we could allow for more than that. We could do a different regulation on that, just food for thought. I know we're still discussing the where question. So this was put last with the idea that if we had some of the previous items figured out, it would make this conversation easier. However, the survey results did point to 1 ADU per lot was the biggest preference. But if there are other thoughts from the Planning Commission or other information that you would like to see first before making that decision, feel free to discuss.
Go ahead, Jim.
Well, back to Bill's comment last time, like on the 1 acre or larger lots, there's space for more than 1. So I think like R2, which are smaller lots or small enough lots, limit it to 1, but out in the R1A1, they can have 2.
I don't like that idea.
I think that's a lot. I think that, go ahead, Sharon, what do you think?
I think 1, for any kind of residential area, I think 1 per lot should be the maximum. And I think for commercial, I like the idea of being allowed to have multiple, like over the different business structures. Like, so 1 per, like, would that be like per tenant space?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's how they typically define it. Well, in the other 2 center region, that's how they defined it.
I agree with you, Sharon. I think that if you bought into a neighborhood, then you kind of like that neighborhood, which is why you bought there in the first place, and that it's disrespectful to have more than 1 detached unit. It does change the look of a neighborhood.
See, you're assuming more than 1 detached unit. What if we have 1 in unit and 1 detached? That's why I'm very much of like, you leave it alone, because again, it's going to self-regulate itself. And for anybody that has an issue with, oh my God, I bought into a place and I don't want it to change, buy into a place with an HOA, form an HOA.
Yeah, but Jim, the HOAs expire, so then what do we do?
You can re-up a HOA.
You
They have
can
to be
re-up
re-upped.
an HOA, but it often takes a lot of majority rules and it's complicated.
And it's
The-
expensive because usually you keep for an HOA, at least in our neighborhood, you keep your fees to a minimum of what, insurance requirements are and the upkeep of the common areas are. It may be a little bit for emergencies, but if you have somebody that's a real, is being a real pain in the neck and not following those covenants, everybody would have to pay for any kind of legal action that you're gonna take. And you find residents don't wanna do that.
Yeah, all I'm saying is that if that's what you want, then that's what you're looking at. But
Hey.
we really should be broad, we should be open, we should not be restricting things, and too tight-knit. So I support Jim's statement of, supporting me, but, the market will take care of these things by themselves.
Bill, it's not that I tend to agree with that philosophy, other than, but the market, the misconception, having spent a lot of years on this planning commission, it's amazing the rumor mills that start and the misinformation machine, and it is massive. So for us as a community to think that doesn't exist, we're foolish. The Patton Crossing was a real, lesson on that. So I think if we can have opportunities to simplify matters, then it's doing the good of the order, which is which is to provide some an accessory dwelling unit. But Jim, you have the floor, and Rich after Jim.
Rich was first.
Rich?
I'm not that concerned about having to limit things to one. I'm kind of the feeling that I think the market and, some of the other things that we discussed with the setbacks and some things along those lines, I think that will take care of this. If I had to make a final vote, I would gravitate towards one, but I'm not dead set on putting a restriction on how many, because I think that the market will take care of itself in that manner. And I'm not too concerned about, having public miscommunication in terms of, what we've been discussing with the quantity. I have pretty solid confidence that I think that, we don't need to set a firm number on the quantity, but those are just my thoughts, and, I'm open to what everyone else thinks on the topic.
Thank you. Jim?
Well, that's pretty much, I think, is just going to regulate itself. Even out on the larger lots, most people that buy an acre or larger lot probably are going to build 0 ADUs unless it's internal down underneath, or already included in their house. So I just think leave it open. The limitations are in place following the ordinances. So it's Park Forest, there's not enough room to have 2, unless one is a converted basement somehow and then a tiny one out. Usually on those type of houses in Park Forest that are that way, it's already a relatively small house. So I think it's just, it'll regulate itself.
But I just want to.
I'm in favor of restricting it to 1.
Okay. Bill, you have a question?
So my feeling is, you keep coming back to this, to the statement of the rumor mills and things like that. I'll tell you, with all my years of working in law, politics, fire department, everything, it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter how clear you make things be. People are going to talk, people are going to make rumors. You can't control that, and there's nothing you can do to limit it whatsoever. So you have to do what is, overall going to get the best result. And, my feeling here is the market's going to regulate itself on this. And, let's just let the market do what it does. So if there's somebody out like where I am that wants to build, that wants to turn their basement rec room into an ADU and then build an over the garage ADU, let them do that. We don't have to worry about somebody realistically, well, and again, staff can tell me whether or not it's realistic that someone's going to even be able to build 2 ADUs in some place like Park Forest. So I think 2's fine, because I don't think you're ever going to be able to get to 3, but, let's let the market do it, and then, or have staff tell us, in addition to those, what is the maximum size? Because, hey, look, if one can be 1,000, let's just go back to this whole entire max size thing, right? If we say it could be 1,000 is your max size, well, why would we be saying that then you can't have 2 300 size ADUs if you can make everything else work?
Well, maybe it's because the neighbor just doesn't want to look at it.
Well, and I think it's the philosophy of why it's being done. So, it's not being done as, creating multi-unit housing on a single property. The purpose is as an accessory dwelling unit. I didn't think it was to have multiple accessory dwelling units.
I agree.
Actually,
I agree. Or now, do we, planning commission, do we feel like?
We've heard from everybody but Bob Prozic. Bob,
Bob, please weigh in.
On the quantity?
Yes.
I think the survey results indicated 1 ADU, and that's fine with me. I think you're really pushing things to put in more than one, unless one is interior and one is exterior detached. So I'm all in favor of 1 ADU per lot.
And Bob, what if the house is big? You are feeling as though there should only be 1 ADU and not 2.
That's correct.
I guess I'm a little bit more open to 2. I'm strongly feeling like there should only be 1 exterior ADU. That if the home is big and someone wanted to do something in the basement, but.
Then you have 1 interior, which is hidden essentially, and 1 exterior, which everybody will see, or folks that back up to your lot will see. And I think that would be acceptable. But as far as an external unit, I think 1 is just fine. And the survey seems to back that up. That seems to be what people prefer.
Yeah.
I think one per
property.
proper property. And if somebody wants to go and get rezoned and let them do that.
I would vote 1 per property, and if that's the case, then I think so do we want to vote on this and do a majority rules?
Well, the ones have it already.
Well, I was going to say, I can get behind, 1 interior, 1 exterior, and then just leave it to the market.
My tally, I've got Sharon, Bob Prozic, and Ellen all firmly at 1, Brian at 1, Brian and Rich at 1-ish. So if you're a 1, then that's 4 votes for 1 per lot.
I'll be a 1. And maybe this.
My ongoing tally, ones have it.
Yeah, I had the ones having it up until a couple people were saying 1 in and 1 out. So, if one in, one out. See, that's why I'm saying, when you start getting into this,
Now you're attorney
Yeah.
talking on us.
no, this is just being a politician. I'm just gonna point out, look, if you wanna do one in, one out, I'm okay with one in, one out. That limits it to 2.
I'd say let's just settle on one for now, and if somebody wants to bring it back up later on.
Yeah, hey, let the people in 2032 change it. But I think
All
for
right.
our audience,
I'll make a motion.
We're doing fine.
Limiting it to 1.
Thank you.
okay, well, that was a good.
I second the motion.
yeah,
Do we have to do, do we do
No,
these things?
no.
Okay.
But we are, that's our opinion, so the answer is 1, great.
Well, then I table my motion, bring it back to the next meeting. You knew what I was doing there.
Why don't we bring back owner occupied at the next meeting? Sorry, I'm
Oh,
kidding.
gosh, no.
Okay, that's it for our work session, I believe. Let me just double
Unless
check.
somebody's got something they want to put on the list for next time.
Yeah, anything more?
Yeah, are there specific things we can talk, let's see, design standards for appearance. We're gonna do the modeling to show different things to wrap up the conversation we had tonight. What else do we still have to talk about?
I thought, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought we were going with that had to be substantially similar to what was, already sort of the design of the house.
I don't think we've had a full discussion of that, and everybody had.
We're not ready
to.
to, we gotta do a deep dive on that.
We'll do the same sort of, we'll survey, we'll summarize what the other municipalities are doing, if they have any regulations, and we'll go through the same sort of process we did for the 5 tonight.
One other thing, Nicole, just to add to the list is, I think it came up multiple times, and that's a really solid communication plan. I feel like there were enough issues that surfaced that having a really strong communication plan that uses a lot of the kind of data that you guys have pulled together would really be helpful for everybody, I think.
I agree. If that's not, anything further, or we'll call it a day.
I just have a question.
Go ahead, Sharon.
I won't be here for the next planning commission meeting. Can we do the work session like the following week? Or is that too much of a pain?
Up to you.
Because I will be home, I will be back by that week.
I'm fine with that. Or can we change that, we don't want to?
Well, let's see what the rest of the board, planning commission members say.
What do you think, guys? So the answer Sharon has is, can we have the work session the following week?
What date is that? I'm sorry, I don't have my calendar in front of me.
Yes, for me.
It would
Be
be
the
regular
13th.
meeting on June 6th and a work session on June 13th.
Oh, I think that's fine.
I
Thank
can
you.
do that.
Thank you.
No,
That's
I'm
actually
fine.
gonna be hard for me.
Everybody's a yes on that? Okay, so
I
Sharon,
said it's gonna be difficult for me.
it's gonna be difficult for you, Bill?
Yeah, based on the scheduling for the 13th for me.
Sharon, are you gone the week of the 6th
I'm gone, I come back into the country on the 8th,
and the 8th?
and that will be late at night.
What about,
I mean, I can do any day after that.
could you Zoom or no?
No, I'll be in a different time zone.
Okay. So, guys, I mean, it doesn't really make sense for us to lose one to gain one, just to move the date, we're not really accomplishing anything. What about to have a work session, that would be 2 meetings, but what about June 9th? You're back on the 8th, Sharon?
Yeah.
Do you want to do 2 that week, Monday the 6th? And then meet on the 9th?
I'm sorry.
Would that work for everybody?
June
Yeah, I'm
9th?
fine with the 9th.
Is that a Thursday or?
That's a
Yeah,
Thursday.
So it's Monday, Thursday, okay.
Yeah, I'd be in court, until the time that would, like, right at the meeting.
Right, I'll be out of town then.
Then I think we should just leave it the 6th, Sharon.
Okay.
Doesn't seem to make, we're not going to pick any more up, and we're going to lose people and gain people. Okay, so we'll leave it the 6th. Very good, okay.
Okay,
Anything else?
bye-bye.
Thank you, guys, thanks for hanging in there.
Thank you.
Okay,
Good
bye.
night.
Take care, everyone. Hi, Tony.